So I'd like to bring a possibly like a new segment, or at least a specialized segment for when you're on the show. You do like heavy metal.
Yeah.
I like heavy metal. I know Ken likes heavy metal, and I know that Don does like metal. Depending on what kind of metal, Don definitely has like knowledge of rock, and that's important too. So like I think this could be a good time. It would be the Is It Metal segment. And just like I would guess that the easy Is It Metal? To like go into like you have your different types of metal, and I think the easiest way to break it down without getting too specific is like you have traditional heavy metal, which would be like your Black Sabbath, your Blue Cheer, your New Wave, which is like your Judas Priest. I mean, not even your Iron Maiden, your Def Leppard, your Doom metal, your speed metal, your thrash, your black, your death, and false.
False. Yeah.
False metal is very important because there's a lot of false metal out there these days. So
I think there's a lot of people who have a hard time with a lot of the trad originators counting as metal anymore. If you said Deep Purple to somebody,
I'd say that was traditional.
Yeah, but a lot of them would say that's just a rock band, Like, there's a lot of... And, like, AC/DC and all these bands that used to get called metal.
AC/DC definitely used to get called metal, and they are just more of a rock band. I would not...
But is that because rock adopted so much of metal's traits that it became metalized? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like once you look at, like, crazy Japanese pornography, is it hard for you to get an erection looking at regular pornography? You know what I mean?
How is AC/DC not metal, but Deep Purple is?
I'd like to say, just for the sake of argument, that if you are more than welcome to say that AC/DC is traditional heavy metal. If you were to put it into one of those categories, that would just be traditional. It's not British New Wave. It's not Doom. It's not speed, thrash, black, or death. So I would say that they are just traditional.
Yeah, you could also kind of lump them in as sort of like the prototype of metal, because you to point out a band like Blue Cheer, who Chuck mentioned before. A lot, if they had come around maybe like 10 years later, they would have been lumped in, but a lot of people just kind of consider them in that same vein as like Black Sabbath and Deep Purple, where this is where the roots of heavy metal started.
Proto metal.
Right. And there are plenty of other bands, and we can get into that a little later that would qualify.
Right.
Would you guys consider like Hendrix and Zeppelin metal?
I would consider Led Zeppelin. I would consider Led Zeppelin heavy metal.
See, I'm like, I don't think I would.
I think especially with the amount of like satanic imagery that they have, like, it's metal. I'm not saying it's all metal, but it is, if you're going to put them in something, like, yes, you can put them in rock and roll, but if you had to use like, any of that stuff, I would say, metal. What would you consider band like Disturbed? Let's pick something that kind of sucks.
New metal.
Yeah. New metal. That's a nice category for all the shit that you don't like. You could just throw it into new metal.
I'd say that's false metal.
False metal.
Yeah, because wasn't Korn considered new metal at some point?
Yeah, they were the first.
Yeah, like,
and Korn is a lot more solid than Disturbed.
So there's this nice distinction that you can make, right? Like, where you could take things like new metal, and there's like what's that new metal like the screamo metal that the kids do now?
Metalcore,
right? So you can say metalcore isn't metal. It's like a off branch of metal. Depends on how wide you want to cast the metal net, right? Like, if you want to say everything that's got the word metal in it gets to be metal, then metalcore and new metal and all those things. I think new metal is a genre of heavy music, of rock music that had metal influence, but loses a lot of the core kind of ethos and I don't know, of metal.
Yeah,
or
a lot of it is metal.
Maybe it's just
kind of filtered through
metal.
I think I think anything that is shitty metal is false metal.
Yeah.
Like, I think new metal pretty much, like, I don't know. I mean, and is there anything wrong with being false metal? Like, honestly, like, Baroness. What do you consider Baroness?
It's tough. It's tough, like especially where they're going, right? You know,
Yeah, like it's good. That new record is good. It's poppy though.
it's a rock record, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, so I look at that Atlanta, the Atlanta movement, that kind of southern metal thing. They've carved out a whole new niche. They're still metal, I think. And Baroness has always been metal, but they've always been metal on the kind of proggy end and on the kind of, you know, whatever that southern tip is that Mastodon kind of helped spearhead.
I mean, isn't Mastodon just doom metal?
I think of them more as like stoner metal. Like I tend to lump Mastodon in more with a band like, say, Monster Magnet.
I think there's something else going on there, and it's because there's a lot of prog in there.
There is.
You know,
there's almost like a hybrid of like Monster Magnet and, say, like Dream Theater. Well, not so much Dream Theater because they're not a real like chops based band, but
there's a line from Tool to Mastodon that a lot of people aren't willing to admit. But
absolutely.
I could
absolutely see it, just in terms of just the structure of the songs.
Yeah.
But Tool,
but
I mean, Tool
like,
is definitely prog metal. I would absolutely put them in there because they draw a ton of influence from mid-'70s King Crimson.
Yeah.
Everything after the first album, though.
Yeah, I mean, the first album's pretty like heavy, you know, but then as they get older, they just get weirder and weirder. But that's like with anything else. Like look at your weird uncle. Like he just gets weirder and weirder, you know, as time goes on. This can't be unexpected. Bullet for My Valentine would be metalcore.
Yeah.
Is all metalcore false metal? I think so.
Yeah.
I definitely think so, especially with the auto-tune. Anything auto-tune is not metal at all. Is that correct?
It's not music.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's not music.
Yeah, that's really not like that all that like I saw something on Decibel where it was like these are like the 5 and I'm like these aren't even metal bands and like I thought it was a little bit presumptuous that they should say that they're metal bands and it's like the Decibel website. I was a little bit annoyed by that. But like
well, I mean, that's the thing is like in the big umbrella look at metal encompasses all that stuff and it lets the shitty metal be part of metal because it's still metal. It's got those riffs, you know.
Yeah, but it's almost like I guess it's like the equivalent of like when like ska punk really like, you know, what is Sugar Ray? Sugar Ray is certainly not like a punk rock band, but they're like that weird 90s pop punk influence, so they get lumped in with, you know, punk rock.
I never believed pop and punk should have ever
melded. You know, I really like the Descendants, man. Like I really do. And like I like a lot of stuff.
The Clash wrote pop songs.
Yeah, they totally did. I like a lot of that stuff. It's tough to discern between pop and catchy. You know, you can write like a catchy song, and there's nothing wrong with writing a catchy song. Much like the new Baroness album, very catchy. You know, it's some people say that you know once it becomes more, you know, approachable and easier to take, then. You know, not everybody's going to listen to, you know, everything Mike Patton does, because not everything Mike Patton does is actually listenable.
True. That's like extreme metal is a defense mechanism against mainstreaming, right? Like, so the more accessible some kind of metal gets, that's why death metal like kind of grew, is because we were in this hair metal phase, and they were like, "Fuck that, we're going to make metal that you need to be engaged in metal culture to appreciate. So we're going to make it fucking brutal, and we're going to make the vocals absolutely nuts that you can't understand and you almost want to laugh at sometimes. And that will weed out the assholes."
Right. I mean, there's definitely
it's like an evolutionary tactic. And black metal is the same way, right? Like it's like you have to have a certain
black metal. I think even more so than death metal, because black metal has got like the crazy vocals that are just generally so high pitch. And like I have a easier time I like black metal influence, but I prefer death metal to black metal. Because it's got more chugga chugga, you know?
Right.
Like it's
more pop music. It's
right,
more
exactly. It's poppy. Death metal is actually more poppy than black metal. That's certainly the thing to walk away from for the uneducated ear. Like
black metal has like a goth influence to it too.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, even like the Cradle of Filth, which is like corny black metal.
Yeah. It's got foot in both things, right?
Yeah.
It's like
what about what would you call typo negative?
I think they fit. They fit, and that it's that goth metal thing. I mean, I was just listening to a bunch of Danzig, and Danzig jumped in both. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, Danzig's almost traditional heavy is more traditional heavy metal, I think, than anything else. I think you can be a new band and be a traditional heavy metal band.
Now you can certainly.
Certainly.
Certainly. No, but I mean, like, bands right now are coming out and doing trad metal in a really awesome way. There's that, or they've been around for a while, but like Slaufeg, like they're making albums that sound like Iron Maiden records, and it's like awesome.
I like that stuff. What about? I mean, I would say Venom is. I would say Venom is speed metal.
Well, you know, I mean, they coined the word black metal.
They did.
Yeah.
But do you think it was black metal?
Man, some of those first songs, I don't know. I'm on the fence there, but like when you listen to like Darkthrone and you listen to Venom and where they're coming from, Darkthrone was just Venom with no budget. You know?
Yeah. Where was Darkthrone from?
They're from Norway.
Yeah, see, that's more. See, I think if you're from Florida, you're not. Like, if you're from Florida, you're anything. You're death metal.
Yeah.
I mean, and there wasn't really death metal yet, so I mean, they played really fast.
But Venom weren't from Florida.
Venom weren't from Florida?
No, they're Swedish.
Venom? They're Brits.
Yeah. What?
They're British.
Well,
You're all over the board now.
We are.
We are all over the board. We need to.
Florida, Great Britain.
They're English. You're absolutely
They
correct.
are English.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just. Oh man, fuck that up.
That's
See,
all right.
that's what the internet's for.
We'll erase that.
Yeah, it's fine. That's fine. All right, just a few more. Napalm Death.
So yeah, I mean, that grind and stuff gets to be metal now.
Right.
When I got into Napalm Death, I'll tell you the first time I ever heard Napalm Death was on the Alternative Tentacles cover album, where it was all the Dead Kennedys covers.
It's a great one.
And they did Too Drunk to Fuck. Which one did they do?
It's
think
either
they
Too
did
Drunk to
that.
Fuck or Let's Lynch the Landlord.
No, L7 did Let's Lynch the Landlord and Faith No More. This is a Virus 100.
Yeah. It's a great record, and that was the first time I heard them. And so I heard them in the punk context.
Right.
And I thought, oh, these guys are just a really fucking heavy punk band. Which, when you think about it, at that time, thrash and punk were doing that kind of crossover thing.
Right.
Where
Totally.
it was blurring, and they were super influenced by each other. And honestly, like, thrash is, especially the San Francisco thrash, has so much punk in it that it's like sometimes it's undiscernible.
I think if you have punk influences in your heavy metal, it's like thrash is the catch-all. Like grindcore, it's like it's something of thrash. Even if it's like that terrible like Polish rap electronic industrial grindcore, like Porno Grind and shit like that, and Gut, like that stuff is, to me, it's just a subgenre of thrash.
So Napalm Death did Nazi Punk's Fuck Off.
Okay.
Which was awesome. I totally remember that now.
Extreme Noise Terror did the KLF's 3 a.m. Eternal for the BAFTA Awards and was considered the KLF's last live performance when they retired. And they came out, and like the KLF came out, and then they had guns, and they like pretended to shoot them at the audience. This was in the late 80s.
Uh-huh.
And then Extreme Noise Terror came out in 3 a.m. Eternal, like their dance hit. And like at that point, like that was probably like the first time that a more mainstream audience got to experience, I think, like grindcore.
Yeah.
You know, even though like you had like your Napalm Death like a little bit beforehand, like that's like kind of like the defining moment where like, wow, this is fucking bonkers, you know?
Yeah. Man, the
Shit.
KLF, leave it to them to fucking culture bomb people.
Exactly. Dude, they were totally into Doctor Who before all these other people were into Doctor Who. We bring it back to Doctor Who, episode 46. Good times. Good
Everything
times.
comes back to Doctor Who.
Totally. The TARDIS brings us together. All right, so like one more.
He said TARDIS.
TARDIS. There's nothing politically incorrect about TARDIS. All right.
Ancient spirits of evil, I have the wizard's hat. Hand over the rest of your objects of power.
Oh, good grief.
Let's see how they like my energy ray.
Thunder! Thunder! Thundercats!
Video game junkie.